parish councillors and 2 members of the public to this meeting of the full council. We have 2 members of the public here, and I think Luke, I ask you to speak first. So this is about item 65, which is nature's home.
So I have 3 minutes, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yes, thank you.
Well, good evening everyone. My name's Luke Bear. I work for South Pennines Park, a small not-for-profit that's sort of championing the South Pennines. And I'm project manager of Nature's Home, which is one of 22 national pilot projects run by DEFRA to explore essentially aggregating small interventions for nature across a large number of land holdings to make a big impact. So we're actually a collection of 25 to 35 landowners in the home catchment, and everyone's signed up with an express interest in looking at co-designing a suite of conservation actions to improve biodiversity and water quality. So we've got funding to develop a suite of actions which could include woodland creation, hedgerow planting, wildflower meadow creation, river restoration options, and sort of natural flood management interventions. So all the suite of package for nature. So the crux of the project is obviously nature restoration, but it's nestled within the context of leaving the EU and the Common Agricultural Policy and sort of ramping down the basic payments. I'm sure you're all aware that sheep farming in particular is going to be hit by that quite hard, and that's already been reduced, I think, to about 50%. So the sort of second element of our project is exploring new income streams for landowners beyond government subsidies, because they're being cut in the next few years for farming. So as part of this engagement in co-designing woodland creation, etc. with landowners, we're exploring new revenue streams that they could tap into to generate annual incomes based upon such things as carbon credits, biodiversity net gain, which legislation I'm presume you're familiar with, because that's coming online in the next couple of months. Then there's also been examples of people generating revenue from natural flood management and water quality. So we're really sort of conscious that the effect the loss of basic payments may have on landowners, and so we really want to find new revenue streams to make sure that rural communities can survive in these changing times. So then I get to the point of being here. So as part of this, we're going to have to establish a responsible body to manage these private funds that are going into nature restoration, whether that be large national companies that want to offset carbon, or even local businesses within the area that want to offset their carbon or biodiversity impacts. But we're expecting to generate about a 7-figure sum from a multitude of sources that would then be, we need a responsible body to manage those funds, and that's where the request comes to the parish council, is that whether we could have some time with the clerk or the sort of financial board of the parish council to explore the parish council being the responsible body to manage these private funds that would come in and then be distributed across landowners. Now, as part of that is that 10% of those fees would be for administration costs. So say if it's a 7-figure sum, £1 million, there'd be £100,000 to fund a position to manage that, and then also look at the management of the contracts in themselves. They're going to be 25 to 40 years long, because of the nature of conservation. You need people to guarantee that this woodland is going to exist. So there'll be some sort of auditing responsibilities as well, which doesn't have to be kept within the council. That we would explore all those options in the feasibility study.
I think if you could wind up.
I think that's about it. Apologies, it's a lot to get out in 3 minutes, but please, if there's any questions, because I covered a lot of things around the
I think the way we handle this, Luke, is that when we come to this item on the agenda, I'll ask to suspend standing orders so that councillors can ask you questions.
Okay.
Are you able to stay?
Yeah, sure. What time would that be?
I think it's 7:50.
Yeah, sorry, it's just, there's the last train's at 9:30, so I don't want to miss that train. Sorry, I didn't mean to be short.
Thanks very much.
No worries.
And our second member of the public is Councillor Mo Crook, who we're going to talk about in relation to item 66, I think, which is the Sands Recreation.
Okay, yeah, so if anyone doesn't know me, I'm Mo, and I'm one of the Kirklees ward councillors here in Holme Valley South. The scheme that I want to talk about is a broader scheme developed by the Parks and Green Spaces team in Kirklees, and it's an update programme of the parks in collaboration with others, such as with ward councillors, with West Yorkshire Combined Authority, and hopefully with the Holme Valley Parish Council. And we're in the process of a transformational redevelopment of Sands Play area and the wider park. The aim is to develop and enhance Sands to be what we're calling a destination park with facilities for all ages and groups, and to add an additional attraction to the town in that way. The idea is that families and other groups, local and slightly further afield, can enjoy the park at the same time, and we want to revitalise the young children's play area, add upgraded pathways to Home Firth to encourage modal shift active travel, improve the look of the park, install new bins, additional signs, better walking routes within the park, provide new play equipment aimed at teenagers and specifically also at young teenage girls. This is in addition to the skate park with 2 football pitches, the mugger, the beautiful scenery for walking and the cal facilities that are already there. The benefits of the broader scheme are to reduce traffic from short journeys to the park from Home Firth and longer journeys to find facilities further afield and reduce our carbon footprint in that way. Reduce congestion through visitors leaving their cars at Sands and walking into the town, with a possible extension to a park and stride or bus and stride programme where people park there and walk into Home Firth. Sorry, lost my place. New Very Circles, can't see. We'll create hopefully an asset with legacy for the people to enjoy in the town. Benefits to local businesses as well and the prosperity of the town by keeping local people here and by bringing people in. The teams in Kirklees have produced plans for Sands that include additional bonus elements which the core funding, which is internal budgets and section 106 funding, are unable to deliver, and that's deliberate. So we've got spade-ready projects. There are 2 substantial extra items: play equipment for teenagers and play equipment specifically designed for young teenage girls, as well as the pathway upgrade, which is slightly separate. Officers have been able to identify additional funding from WICA and the UK Shared Prosperity funding for the older teenage equipment, which is a massive achievement, by the way, in the current climate. But we have yet to allocate funding for the equipment for young teenage girls. We do have, we've been able to allocate funding from Play Standard grant from other bits of pots of money for the pathway, so we should be all right for that, I hope. So what we need funding for is the innovative provision for teenage girls. We've already been able to negotiate a substantial discount for this, by the way, if it's purchased, because of it being part of the larger scheme, making it an absolute bargain. The equipment, which is, I think, in your papers, it's a sort of in-connected social hub scheme, and it's evidence-based provision for young teenage girls, and the evidence base is from a charity called Make Space for Girls. So that's quite positive as well. In the recent Play Standard consultation, young people said they felt bored and also ignored. And this dual provision responds to the voice of local young people, which I think is a massive positive as well. I also think this is an example, if we carry it off together, of how to do things better, both the partnership funding with multiple groups funding the provision, the additional provision, and in terms of the design, which gives us provision for a demographic often ignored completely in parks. We should be able to promote and celebrate this as best practice after installation, giving us wider appeal across Kirklees, and hopefully people can benefit from that in other park developments. So in summary,
I think you're probably approaching the 3 minutes.
yeah, sorry, I've just got one paragraph, is that all right? It's just a quick summary to say that, you know, it's a progressive and inclusive project, and it's ready to go, so it's guaranteed delivery if we do it now, and if we don't do it now, we lose the benefit that we've been able to negotiate through it being part of a broader scheme. So please support it.
Good. Thank you, Mo. Right, so we now move on to a whole set of procedural matters, and we'll try and deal with these efficiently, because we have a long agenda tonight. So first item is the recording of the public meeting. This meeting is being recorded for the Parish Council's YouTube site. Does anybody wish to make any further recording? No? Okay, move on. Item 54, items to be held in private session. Suggesting that item 73, which is the report on rights related to civic, is held in private session. The reason being that it has information about individuals and their property ownership. Woodson proposed it. Thank you. Proposed and seconded. All in favour? Thank you. Okay, so item 73 will be held in private session. Next item, apologies and reasons for absence. The apologies and reasons for absence have been circulated earlier today, so we have had apologies from Councillor Whitelaw, Councillor Green and Councillor Ransby. We're happy to accept those and thank you. Taylor, thank you. Right, and just to note, there is a 6-month dispensation in being for two councillors, Councillor Kath Fernandez and Councillor Donald Firth. Right. Moving on to declarations of pecuniary and other interests, and clerk to report. Thank you.
So these have been distributed by email for Councillor James, Councillor Blacker, Councillor Dixon, Councillor Whitelaw, Councillor Ryder, Councillor Holmes, Councillor Bailey. With the exception of Councillor James, these have all been noted by committees that they have been members of as well. Councillor James was distributed for the first time prior to this meeting, and redacted copies will be placed on the Holme Valley Parish Council website following this meeting. So they are all updated DPIs. So we'll put those as noted, Chair.
Yes, please. Here we go. Right. We now move on to the minutes of previous council meetings, of which there are a very large number.
Declarations of interest.
Oh, sorry, declarations of interest. Skip over. Right. Declarations of interest in agenda items. How many councillors got an interest in any of the agenda items? That's unusual. Thank you. Have any of the officers got an interest in any of the items? No? Right. Right, now we'll move on to the minutes of previous council meetings. So first of all, the minutes of the annual council meeting from the 26th of June. Could I ask that the councillors approve the minutes?
Can I just correct that, because it shouldn't say annual council, it's just full council. That's
Right.
my mistake.
Thank you.
Apologies.
Right.
While I'm speaking, can I also apologise for some misnumbering I've got in this agenda, because at some point I've obviously confused last year with this year. So items that are labelled 222362, 222363, 222371, 222372. They should all be 2324. So my apologies for that.
Thank you. Right.
Probably won't know,
No, we probably wouldn't, so. Thank you for confessing. Committee minutes. So minutes of standing committees. So first of all, Finance and Management Committee, Councillor Greaves.
Yeah, I'm happy to move that, Chair.
Just one following on from the clerk's comments. I think there might be some misnumbering in these minutes too, which I don't know whether we can address or whether the Finance and Standing Committee ought to address, but items 21 and 24 should be 41 and 22.
Are you talking the minutes of Finance and
Yes,
Management
indeed.
Committee?
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm thinking of the peasants, but I think they are wrong.
So those can be amended, so the council can approve those minutes with the amendments suggested.
Right.
I'll propose
Somebody
that.
propose that, thank you. Somebody second that. Okay, all those in favour? Right, thank you. Right. Thank you, Councillor James. Right.
But we didn't include council. Sorry, that's me.
That's
I'm
right.
corrected.
No, we didn't, did we? So let's move back to the full council minutes. Somebody Move to approve the full council minutes, thank you, and second, all in favour, right, so now we've voted on them. Moving on to the planning committee, Councillor Wilson,
Yes.
three there to go out, thank you.
Yes, could I ask council to approve the minutes from the 11th September? Earlier ones. Earlier ones. I thought they were just noted.
They're to note.
They're just to note, yeah, we've just been asked to note those, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So, all those in favour? Nancy, Boris. 3rd of July minutes. Okay, all those in favour? Thank you. And finally, 14th of August, asked to approve those minutes. 11th of September, asked to approve those minutes, yeah. Okay, all those in favour? Thank you. Right. And we move on to the service provision committee, and there are two sets of minutes here, so Councillor Bailey. Okay.
Yeah.
Would you like to move,
I'll move.
ask us to note and then approve?
Yeah, can we note and approve?
I think we have to do them separately.
Okay.
So,
Can we note?
yeah, can we note?
Can we approve?
Can we note the minutes of the service provision on the 5th of June, please, all those in favour?
Yeah.
Thank you. And then approve the minutes on the 18th of September. Thank you. Those in favour, right. Right, now the minutes for the Climate Action Communication Engagement Committee. So in Councillor Whitelaw's absence, it will be the Vice Chair who would.
Also absent. Is that also absent?
Sorry.
You're on it, you suggested, I know.
Right. Okay, can we note the minutes of the Climate Action Communications Engagement Committee, please, held on the 4th of September, please, all those in favour, thank you. And then we need to ask for approval of the minutes of the meeting held on the 4th of September. Thank you. Okay, thanks. And then the staffing committee held on 17th of July, Councillor Dixon.
Can I recommend that the committee approves the minutes held on the 17th of July 2023, numbered 23-24-01, 23-24-42. I'd like to propose them.
Thank you. Right. Can we note them? Second. Okay. All in favour? Thank you. Right. Those are the minutes disposed of. Moving on to financial matters, and item 60, the council budget 2023 to 2024 year to date, including earmarked reserves. Do you wish to make any comments at this time?
Yeah, I suppose so, yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, obviously these are presented because we are heading into budget season, so it's useful to see where we are in the year, and it's useful to see where we're projected to be spending for the rest of the year. In terms of where we've already, where we are already, you're probably aware of where we've got a few issues. Our insurance was overspent. The Civic Hall budget, when we paid for the fire escape, that's going to be overspent. And then we've got a few smaller overspendings, New Mill Churchyard, for example, and Remembrance Sunday, that's like £10, so it's not going to kill anybody. And then obviously we've got the COVID Memorial, which is being considered tonight as well. So that's kind of where we are booked year to date. Have you mentioned the projected already, Mary, on this?
No.
You haven't, you've just done the year to date, right?
Okay. So we've asked to note the council budget 2023-24 year to date. Happy to note that. Thank you. Noted. Thank you. Consider any actions arising.
I don't think there are any.
I don't think there are any actions arising at this point, are there? So we're moving on to the item 61, which is the schedule of payments month to date October 23.
Oh, sorry, no, I missed what you was, I thought you meant matters arising from the year to date. I've got comments to make about the projected.
You've got comments to make about
Yeah.
projected?
So, for the last few years, as you're aware, I did write that report and send it out to you today. You're probably aware that for the last few years we've run a deficit budget. What we found was, before the last council, the council built up quite a lot of reserves, and had probably done so without a great deal of a forethought about what they were going to use the money for, but we were left with this sizable chunk of money. But then, as I said in the report, our internal auditor pointed out that we should really only have a certain amount relative to our size as a council. So for the last few years, we've been trying to reduce our level of general reserves by running deficit budgets. However, we're kind of at the stage now where we've run so many deficit budgets where we're at the point where we've got to where we need to be. But the difficulty is that moving forward, if we want to repeat similar levels of service that we've had this year, we've got to find money. And as I've said, we've not put the precept up for 5 years. And before that, I don't think they put it up for several years before. As I said in the report, since then we've spent heavily on the climate emergency. We've spent heavily on Holme Library. None of those figures were factored into the precept at the time. Also, obviously, this year we spent 24,000, is it, on youth provision? Again, not factored into the precept when it was set, 5 years ago. So we need to be finding that, if we wanted to create a budget next year which, has similar levels of service, we've got to find money or cut service. That's where we're at. We don't have any more sort of spare money in general reserves. All we've got is some money in earmarked reserves, which we could repurpose. That's up to the council. Or we can raise the precept, or we cut services, and that's what the budgetary process is going to have to figure out over the next few months. It's going to be quite challenging, I think. So yeah, that's where we are.
Thank you. I think between us we might skip over two agenda items, so we actually need to go back. So I think we've considered item 60. Item 61 is the schedule of payments month to date, October 23. Can we, does anybody wish to propose that we approve the schedule of payments?
I've checked into that, I'm happy to approve.
Okay, thank you. Can we vote on that? Happy to approve? Thank you. And then there's the external audit and certificate, item 62. And this have you anything you wish to report on this, Rich?
Only that there were no problems. It was good. Yeah.
Excellent. So can we just note the receipt of the external audit certificate? Yeah. Thank you. Always done. Thank you. Now I think we're coming to item 663. So we've had input from the Deputy Clerk. Does anybody else wish to make? Thank you. Councillor Greaves and then Councillor Lyons. Thank you.
So, as well as the issues that the clerks identified, we've also got pressures within the existing budget, if you like. So the most notable one would be staffing costs, whenever the pay settlement comes through. I think it's probably right to say that the only thing that's in the current budget that's likely to come down is the election costs. But when you start making those adjustments, we've run an increasing deficit budget for the last few years, and even if you adjust out the future election expenses and say make a provision of 10,000 a year, without some action, we're going to have forward deficits, and more so, as the clerk has said, with the earmarked and free reserves getting run down, we could really hit a problem if we don't take some action, and to me that action needs to be taken now. Later on in the agenda we've got discussions regarding setting priorities, and there's quite a few spending commitments in those as well. So I think I've got my own view on that, and I think we'll come to it on raise it then, but I think we've had a position where we've been intentionally reducing reserves, but that the speed of that, the future trajectory, all those other budget and cost pressures mean to me it's something that has to be addressed this time round. And there are a few options, but I think it's important that all members recognise that just pushing this on another year isn't really the answer. Thank you.
But we are kind of moving into the budget setting period, aren't we? So Councillor Lyles.
Just a emotive loaded question, just in my traditional style. If we stop giving all this money away with grants and stuff and reduce the grant budget, how much would that help? You know, if we halved it and just did one grant award a year of so much money and not, you know, reduce the grant.
Obviously, a lot. I mean, last year we gave out 170,000 quid in grants. So.
I think obviously we need to pick up these issues and these debates later when we get into the budget setting process. Councillor Bailey.
I agreed with the comments that the Deputy Clerk made about this objection, the broad observations, and I think just to add to it as well, I don't think that you mentioned about the impact of inflation, and I don't think that, you know, we haven't taken account of that. We've been absorbing that over the last 5 years, and that's particularly significant obviously over the last year to 2 years.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to comment on this item? I just want to say heartfelt thank you to our Deputy Clerk for all his sterling work on all aspects of the council's finance, and the external audit and certificate. Everything appears to be running really smoothly now. Even in the time I've been council, it hasn't always run quite so smoothly. So I just want to say, a very hearty thank you to the Deputy Clerk for all his work on finance. Thank you. Okay, right. Change of gear again. We're moving on to matters reserved for full council and item 64, which is priorities. This matter is something that I kind of landed the council with. I was really anxious that instead of being reactive, that the council was being more proactive, and that he had plans in place and what he was going to do, not just this year, but in future years, and that projects wouldn't appear sort of whizzing in from the side, as it were. So I want to say that I feel there's been a really positive response to this request. Inevitably, as you've seen in the papers, different committees have approached this in different ways. I think the only one which actually uses the suggested pro forma was one I think Rich had quite a lot of quite a big hand in doing. But it's very interesting the way different committees have approached it, and the amount of care that they put into it and the amount of detail. I think that the importance of this matter is to actually accept it, accept this as a principle, that we are actually going to have some targets, and also the process I think has been really important. So the outcomes in terms of the documentation that comes out are not in perhaps secondary importance. But I just want to say thank you really to everybody who's been involved and you know, listened and taken part in quite a few of the discussions, and they've been very they've been very thoughtful. As already pointed out, they're also quite expansive, some of these plans, and a lot of many of the documents they need to look back again. They'll need to be revised, perhaps reduced, possibly expanded. But they are, you know, they are what they are, and I think that they're collective. They're actually quite they're a good piece of work. I cannot see any point in trying to squeeze all this variety of formats into the approved format. So I'm suggesting that what we do is that we leave each committee with its own action plan to further refine it. Can I just see if is there approval for that idea? Can you just leave it these things they are? Thank you. Right, thank you. And really the timing is right really, because we're thinking about priorities now, and then we move into the budget setting process. So yes, it's I think it's been a good exercise. Okay, does anybody, before we move on to looking at the strategic priorities from 2021, does anybody want to make any comment on the priority setting? No, it's all exhausted by having gone through the process, I think. Probably. Yes, Councillor Holmes.
Can I just ask that we haven't had any discussion about what Rich has just said about the budget, and obviously that has massive implications for these priorities.
Yes.
So is that going to go back to the committees? Do we not have to make any resolutions in this meeting when we're all together?
No, I think it's the priorities belong to the committees, and I think they go back to the committees.
Priorities do, but whether there is money for those priorities.
Well, they have to be. Yes, they'll have to be looked at again, revised, and possibly in most cases perhaps reduced. They are very ambitious. You know, what now we've got clearer information about the outcomes, the budget outturn.
And so do we wait to discuss what Rich has just pointed out to us until the next full council meeting, or do we deal with that in our?
No, we'll deal with it. We'll deal with it in our.
We'll deal with
it in committees.
Yeah, and then there'll be a recommendation from the committee. Will go to finance, and then the finance committee will basically look at all the input from the individual committees and the precepts where money might come from. And they, you know, in previous years there's been a lot of horse trading and moving monies around, and then it goes to council, and council can just approve it or they can tweak it.
And it will be the finance committee that decides whether you cut services or increase the precept. That will be.
Well, not really. No, council ultimately.
That's why. But it goes to the committees and then comes back here.
Yeah, I'll go to those finances.
You don't have to do it now.
No, we're not doing it.
Right, okay.
Councillor Morgan.
Yeah, I think it's clarified that. I think, how do you make a decision about raising precept? Surely should be a
full council.
Well, it is a full council. That is a full council decision.
Right.
Yeah, in the light of the recommendations that are coming from the committees, having re-looked at their priorities in the light of the information that we have. Were you wanting to speak, Councillor Greaves, or no?
Well,
only if you want to.
Yeah, only to say, I think there's some big choices that need to be made, and essentially it boils down to whether or not we look to contain expenditure, and then how we deploy reserves, or whether or not we're going to see an increase in the precept. So there's you know, but before we get to that, there needs to be that awareness of where we're at, where things are moving, what the impact would be of some of these suggestions. So I think all of the committees probably, all the members ought to have sight of that now, and within the individual committees, then it'll be a case of just having a review of what they're going to propose. We'll all have our own take on that, but I think it's important that we get ahead of this rather than end up having very long meetings, you know, a few days before it all needs to be finalised. I think it's better just to run this through a couple of months and put a bit of time and thought into it.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Greaves. I mean, I hope everybody's fairly clear about the process. We have that, the Deputy Clerk has sent out a really helpful email sometime this afternoon, so I'll suggest everybody has a good look at that, and particularly the chairs of committees. So we okay to just move on to looking at the strategic priorities from 2021. The clerk and I have had a conversation about these, and whilst they're not very old, our conclusion was that there are things that are missing from those things that have become more salient in the few years since those were drawn up. So if what one suggestion would be that we have a very small group who looks at them and comes back with revisions to the next full council meeting. I think certainly the clerk and I would like to be a part of that. Is there anybody else who is desperately interested in strategic priorities for the full council and wishes to join us? Yes, Councillor Colleen. Thank you. Councillor Bailey. Anybody else? No.
Sorry, can I just ask though, surely that has to go with budgeting as well, isn't it?
Sorry?
It has to be, strategic priorities are completely based on money, aren't they?
No, not that. The strategic priorities don't have any budget attached to them, and the budget becomes attached in the committee to the committee budgets. So indirectly, they obviously they do have money attached. Sorry,
Councillor meeting, Councillor Blacker.
Sorry?
How often will we be meeting?
No, I hope we can perhaps do it in one.
Oh, come on.
Brilliant. Thank you, and Councillor Wiles. Right, thank you. Okay. And if anybody else has any has ideas about the strategic priorities, please just feed them into either the clerk or I, so that when we have our one meeting, we can we've got your ideas as well. Right. So let's move on. And the next item, 65, is nature's home. We've got there. And the first thing I need to do is to ask the council if we can suspend standing orders so we can question or ask questions of rather. Luke, thank you. Mr. Luther, thank you. Councillor Greaves, and it's seconded by all those in favour. Right. Does anybody want to start with a question? Oh yes, there are quite a few. I think the order was probably again Councillor Greaves and then Councillor Wiles. Thank you.
Well, I guess the starting point really is with the clerk and the deputy clerk, as to whether or not they think they've got the time and resources to deal with this, or whether they think it would require very specifically employed to run the project. We've already seen some big calls on their time, and yeah, this I'd like to know whether or not I think it's within their scope and capacity.
Do you wish to comment?
I do, and I think I speak for Rich as well, although he's welcome to chip in. We don't have the capacity to do this. We do not have the capacity to do this. A later agenda item is looking at putting to full council whether you're prepared to pay the overtime I've already spent for earlier this year. So my own view is, if you're going to consider this, one of the things you're going to have to consider is the staffing resource implications and how you would meet that.
Thank you. So it's Councillor Wise and then Councillor Bailey.
As a landowner and a wind turbine owner, so I already sell my carbon offsets, how exactly is this going to work? So, like, I do know there is an area on top of Holme Moss that's marked as like a carbon capture certification area, but when I have investigated it extensively, I have hit a very minute brick wall. So I just wonder how it works, because as a council we own land as part of the land charity. We can carbon offset that and generate some income. I'm winning, but I just don't understand how it works.
Well, the model we're looking at in relation to carbon is woodland creation, because when this project was put together there wasn't aim to look at peatland restoration, but it's all owned by Yorkshire Water and they want to keep all their carbon internal. So Holme Moss is owned by Yorkshire Water and they're quite difficult to get information out of, so I don't know if that's why you came to a brick wall.
No, not necessarily. I own some land, like I farm 140 odd acres across Holme Fair, and I'm already involved with river road connections, putting like hedgerows in and things like that. So if I'm putting 17.5 miles worth of hedgerow in, what do I get carbon offsetting? Because nobody's offered me any money for it.
Yeah, that's the problem with hedgerows at the moment, because that's not got a carbon qualification with it, so that wouldn't be carbon that we would be looking at for that.
And I've got 55 beehives, and you can't carbon offset them.
No, I don't think you can. The beehives aren't necessarily good for biodiversity either, that's a separate story.
And I've got a quarry full of wildflowers and trees, and I can't offset that.
Okay, so like how it works that we're looking at for woodland carbon offsets is we've got a partner consultancy that specialises in that, and the way we can make it work, because for investors the current market is investors want like a big chunk of carbon, don't they? So there's algorithms, formulas to calculate how much carbon if you stick an oak and a dogwood and a willow. There's formulas to like understand how much carbon that will suck out the atmosphere over a 40-year agreement, and that can then be audited for its lifetime. So you go and do DBH measurements like diameter at breast height, and then correlate that to a more accurate representation of how much carbon you're sucking up, essentially sequestering.
So Yorkshire Water offered a farmer a lot of money to put some willow at the top of in Birchworth.
Yeah.
The willow grew, beautiful it was, and then nobody wanted it for biodiversity fuel, so they chopped it all down and burnt it.
But that's separate to carbon offsetting. That's like a biofuel for electricity generation, isn't it?
So, but how are you going to generate money?
So we have this. So we have the formula to calculate how much carbon will be sequestered. So you can calculate that and then check it against performance, and then you've got a hard number of say 20 tonnes of carbon have been absorbed by this 40-acre woodland. So then that has a monetary value to it. So at the moment it's about £30 a tonne of carbon that's being sold in this country. That's expected to rise to about £80 a tonne in the next 25 to 30 years.
But for me to plant trees all over my land, I then won't be able to graze it, so then I won't get a single payment.
Too true, yeah. If you do sign up to the Woodland Carbon Creation Scheme, you cannot graze it. But you can use it as a shelter belt during but then that's what we're coming up against. And like none of these, we haven't got a firm figure on what landowners are willing to do. But part of the problem of this project is that we're competing with the government's own subsidies, which with sustainable farming incentive, say wood pasture, where you can get payments for biodiversity by putting a few trees in your field, and you can still graze it, and it's something like £300 per hectare, and that's a very attractive offer. But that's a separate story that we're getting into there, but it's just the wider picture of these new income streams. They're very latent, they're new, and they're competing against subsidies where you can still graze. So this is still, it's a difficult thing, but the point being is there's a whole accreditation system within the UK for calculating the Woodland Carbon Code, which the government established a few years ago. And in many regards, a lot of companies are more attracted to it because people have been offsetting overseas for lots of years, and it's very hard to audit those schemes. So there's a big appetite to invest in this country, but it's very difficult to get landowners to change to this, and this is part of what we're exploring through this project.
I think we probably need to, so there's quite a few people waiting to
Yeah.
speak, so it's certainly, it's Councillor Bailey, then Morgan, and then Griggs.
Very quick question, Luke.
Yes.
You said that this is one of quite a number of similar projects across the country.
Yes.
Who is taking on that responsible body
Yeah.
role
management.
elsewhere? Presumably not just councils like us.
No. So there's not been too many cases of it actually been done. You know, it's this very new area, but some have just established their own independent business called a special purpose vehicle. So they've just created themselves and got their own governance and their own financial management, and then they get 10% of all the investment to then manage that financially and do all the auditing. But our thinking here was that there's a governance structure here within the parish council that already exists. This could bring in extra revenue to the council, even higher a position for the council to manage this. So we're just exploring options for what these responsibilities could be, and that's why we're here today to see if you would be interested to explore it.
Sorry, that was my question.
Was that your question? Right. Councillor Greaves and then Councillor Wilson.
So, can I ask you, what was the main thought behind the parish council? Its longevity and its legal status. Is that why you identified it as being a suitable part?
Yeah, and your overarching aim is like community good and community spirit and like interventions for the community good, and essentially this is what this project is, because it's not just nature as well. We're looking at access opportunities and trying to like create more green space, and so just it just aligned with all the goals or aspects of the goals of the parish council.
Can you, and it's going to be a bit of a piece of string question, but can you give us an idea of kind of what staffing requirement you think it might take on a weekly basis, but also for how long that's likely to be? The duration. Is it likely to be a 40-year commitment, but with different levels?
Well, for this woodland creation officer, so to sign up for the carbon woodland scheme, that's a 40-year commitment from a landowner. So you would need auditing and administration for a 40-year period, whereas biodiversity net gain, that's sort of 25-year period. You have to commit to the management of a wildflower meadow, for example, for 25 years. And then the actual staffing requirements, yeah, it's difficult to say, because this is sort of what we'd want to explore with you over the next steps. But say if we draw in £1 million, then that's £100,000 for the council straight away, and then that I could see it being a part-time position, sort of 2 or 3 days a week managing this, but that's sort of the next step, is to figure out what that responsibility would be. But I think there might be sort of peak periods during the year when sort of covenants, and certainly at the start of the project when they're first established, and sort of going through the accreditation to make sure that that agreement is legal and the landowner can meet those obligations. But then moving forward from that, it's just annual payments and then sort of auditing and potentially hiring contractors to do that.
And your main local partners, River Home Connections, isn't it?
Yeah, that's correct.
So River Home Connections have got some staff.
They do.
Do they have staff capable of running this? It's just more of a question of the parish council's got long legs, and whereas River Home Connection.
Yeah, because there's some probably the issue with this is risk, and this is a new area to move into. But I mean, the rewards could be quite high if it works well, and there's funding for the council. But it's moving forward, and as more legal agreements are made with more landowners, that risk is going to go up and up. And I think River Home Connections just don't have that ability to manage that, and to take on the administrative burden of something like this, or the administration opportunity. Not selling it very well there. Yeah, at present they don't have that. And I think there may be like legal implications for someone to potentially do the contracting work. They can't be the responsible body, so because elements of it probably would go through.
Yeah, I was wondering whether or not there's an opportunity to, if you like, use our name but use River Home Connections as the actually the admin, but it's not.
I think elements of the admin could be like the auditing, ecological auditing, whatever that would be. Yeah, and this is the things that we would hopefully like to explore to see how that relationship could work.
Thanks. So two more people certainly want to speak. Councillor Wilson and then Councillor Holme.
I think Councillor Greaves
I
mean, I think it comes down to really a better understanding of what you would actually require and what the rewards are. We don't have enough information at the moment, I don't think.
Well, that's what I'm asking essentially, is a bit of the clerk's time to sort of work through what the realities this would be. for you?
What, to quantify
The
the
amount?
use worth doing?
Yeah,
Yes.
and you know we could have potentially cover some of the park's time to explore that as well. So it's not like we would try and take that for free.
Yes, do you want to interject?
I've no expertise in terms of exploring it. I don't know what I would be bringing to the table exactly.
It's
because
capacity
it's-
within the council, I imagine, and what you would be willing or not willing to take on. And then can I clarify, you said there is no capacity, but in what regards? Within the current structure now, or capacity to even assess the feasibility of this because you're all so busy? Sorry?
Unfortunately, it's the latter. At the
Right,
moment,
yeah, okay.
we've got more work than the clerical staff can handle.
Yeah.
Sorry, Councillor Bellamy has been waiting a while to speak.
I just, out of curiosity, have you already met with Meltham Town Council?
No.
No, I just wondered what they'd said. Right.
Meeting them next week.
I'm just wondering if their clerk has got any capacity. I mean, I've no idea, I don't know.
If you want to speak.
So, that was it. I just wondered whether they've got any capacity.
Cool. I'll find out
Maybe
next
not.
week. Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't fully understand. Am I right in thinking that the work involved for this person would be first to recruit people to the scheme, landowners, then to sort out the legal, the valid, the parameters, and then to administer? Is that broadly? And you would continue recruiting, I assume, but
No, but the clerk wouldn't recruit the landowners. That would be River Home Connection's responsibility,
Right.
and they've got those relationships. So essentially, it would be checking the landowners understand their legal requirements before they sign the covenant, this legal agreement, and then registering the legal agreements with DEFRA,
right.
and then monitoring them over their the contract length.
I mean, all things are possible if you set your mind to them, but at the moment, without additional staff, it's not possible.
Yeah.
I hope I speak for everybody at the moment.
I mean, sorry, is that right? And then you talk. I believe this is an amazing, this is a truly wonderful project. It has so much going for it. But the situation here at the Parish Council is that the council is undergoing a process of quite rapid change and development, and certainly the staff team are fully committed, as we just heard from the clerk, fully committed at the moment, and to take on another huge responsibility, because even if somebody additionally is appointed to do this work, then it would have to be the clerk specifically would then have to become the line manager. It's a shame because this is such a brilliant idea. And the other thing is that in a way it's kind of out of scale, because if you think about the amount of money, I think you'd say a seven-figure sum, and the parish council total budget is 300,000. So it's in a way what you want to do is kind of out of scale with our, the size of our current operation. Councillor Lyles.
Just being a bit out of curiosity, Mary, can I meet with Luke and talk to him about it privately? Because as a councillor, because as a landowner, I'm very interested in how it would apply, as I'm sure Mr. Fenwick is.
I won't be in for 40 years, so it won't make a difference. If somebody signs up for 40 years, right, and they pass away, whenever 10 years, 20 years, what happens if the person that takes over, son, daughter, whatever, doesn't want to be in that agreement?
Well, yeah, see, this is a big challenge, isn't it? These are like lifetime agreements that
And then to be
roll
honest,
over.
most farmers are very environmentally friendly.
Yeah.
Beehives, growing hedges, I grow trees, I planted 500 trees 2 years ago. It's part and parcel of being a farmer.
Yeah,
looking after the land.
No, I'm not questioning
And
that.
it's a great idea for it, but for me, I wouldn't sign to it for 40 years.
No,
Too
it's
big
a
a
big
commitment.
challenge, isn't it? It is
Too
a big
long.
commitment.
5 years, 10 years, yes, but 40 years. No.
Councillor Greaves was waiting to speak, but that's before he sorry, and then Councillor Dixon, but we need to be kind of moving towards some kind of resolution decision on this, on how we proceed with this.
Yeah, I think it's a great project. I mean, without doubt, for most of these projects, it's the government rules and regs and how that all works that very much makes it quite a challenge. Have you spoken to us to the future? I know it's within not being people and Woodland, but they've got that responsible partner experience.
No, they are a partner on the project as well, actually.
Would they not be able to run it alongside some of their projects?
We're exploring that as well, potentially. Because we're trying to, because this is also fact finding for the whole country about what works in these new financial systems. So that's part of the thing that we're.
I just think so. Meltham Town Council is a third the size of this council, and again, you know, the administrative requirement for this project is quite big. If you want any help in that conversation with us for the future, I'd be happy to help. I know Christine.
I know Christine.
And it might be something that we can help with, but I think maybe it's more in their league.
Yeah. No, and we're also looking at the Rivers Trust as well, which is another one, the national, because they're setting up it.
Yeah.
But it's very much fact finding, and same with these like 40-year agreements. Again, it's finding out what landowners are willing to engage in, and what the councillor said there. I'm not surprised, because this is our huge agreements, but it's the only way that it works at the moment with the market, and this is what we're trying to figure out, how to get people that want to put money into it with the actual landowners, and all in the light of basic payments going, because it's hard times.
Councillor Dixon?
Yeah, I'm just wondering how many people have signed up to this yet or are interested. Because on the website it mentions that tenders are linked to the Nature's at Home project, which are open until Friday the 3rd of November.
That's in relation to a
different project.
Well, we've got to do a heritage assessment of the catchment, and there's a tender also for drone photography.
Okay. So
but the landowner sign-up cut-off is December.
Okay.
And we've got 25 landowners at the moment with another 10 who are interested. And that's just an expression of interest. That's not people signing on to contracts.
And what area does that cover?
About half of the home catchment.
So that's half of what you're aiming for.
Sorry, the project area is half the home catchment. I'm not from the top of my head exactly sure what acreage of that, but it's relatively sizable.
Okay.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak? It appears to me that perhaps our options are to decide now tonight that they're not able to take this on, or we appoint a small group to do a bit more fact finding and then report back to the next council. Does anybody wish to put forward a proposal along those lines, or indeed any other lines?
I propose a fact finding. I'll meet with Luke. Do you
I'm sorry.
So we've had a proposal that we appoint the fact finding group and come back to this. Does anybody wish to make any other proposal? Right.
Can I suggest before you go to a motion, you just do include the names of the councillors you want to be part of the group?
Yes.
So we've got Councillor Lyles, Councillor
Well, we need to
Turkey.
go.
Include that in the motion.
Yeah,
so they're named in the motion.
Right.
It's in the working group.
Fair enough, right.
Can we volunteer Councillor Green as well? Because he wants
Are you volunteering?
No, Chair, I was going to suggest that Councillor Whitelaw actually ought to be a member of this because it's so central to the climate.
Good thinking.
So the small group so far consists of Councillor Kirby, Councillor Lyles, Councillor Whitelaw. Is there anybody else who wishes to be
Morgan.
Sorry, Councillor Morgan.
Can we nominate Councillor Green? If
Yeah.
you're not out, I
Yeah,
think
give us
it's
the
right.
option.
up to
Yes,
Councillor
actually,
Green.
it's probably, okay,
So the motion is to appoint a fact-finding group consisting of Councillor Lyles, Councillor Green, Councillor Morgan, Councillor Kirkby and Councillor Whitelaw to investigate further and report back at a later meeting.
Councillor Green.
Did I not say that?
And promise, Jen, we'll think about your working hours.
Right, so that is the motion. Is everybody clear what the motion is? That we establish a small fact finding group with those named councillors. All those in favour of that? Right. All those against? Right. Any abstentions? Right. I think that's carried. So, thank you so much, Lou.
Thank you for
Yes.
listening. Yeah, it's,
So whoever's convening the working group will be in touch with you, presumably.
yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be great, please.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming tonight.
Thanks very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Yeah. I think we needed a few minutes of a few moments to cooling down. So we're moving on to item 66, which is Sands Recreation. I'm going to ask councillors again if we're willing to suspend standing orders so that, thank you. Yeah, okay, all those in favour so that we can ask Councillor Cook questions. He can answer. But I think this item has been the responsibility of a working group. Are you wanting to report on where we are with these, Councillor Daly? Thank you.
Well, yeah, the working group, it hadn't actually met. What actually happened was, this goes back to June, so our full council meeting in June, when we set up a working group of 4 members, with the intention of working with police councillors and the officers. That was during the summer. The officers weren't available at the time to meet, and it drifted on. There wasn't a meeting until there was quite a last minute meeting just last week, I think it was, and it was at a short notice, and I was the only one that was actually able to attend that particular meeting.
I got told it was cancelled.
Yeah, but it was, yeah, and then it felt
I
it
didn't know about
was a
it.
communication issue, yeah. Anyway, long story short, I had a meeting with Councillor Crook, the architect, the landscape architect, whose name I've
Amanda Spears, forgotten.
Amanda, and Isabel as well from the alternatives. And I, since then, I mean, listened to what they said, also asked another question since, and that the information response I got back has been circulated this afternoon, which is about the crowdfunding option. And I personally have read the report as well about the teenage girls play, and found a very interesting research report. Then if others have read it as well, it's not a long report, it is worth reading. It's interesting conclusions. I've got my own feelings, that's where we're at in terms of that working group and so on. I'm saying that I've got something else to say later if you like, I'll stop now.
Right. Does anybody have any questions they wish to ask? Right. Councillor Weiler and then Councillor Dixon.
Just about the timescale of this project. So is this project ready to start pretty soon, and how does the money that we will put towards the swing, and how does that put in terms of when we would need that money? So just a bit of a timescale.
Yeah, so this is part of a broader scheme of playable space update across Kirklees, and we're actually ahead of the game in Holme Valley South. We've already done, well, about to do Scoles Horns. Once there's an agreement with the drainage situation, then the following over will be done south Hans and Victoria are being put together, and the consultation is complete and the designs are complete, so it's ready to go out to tender, which is why it's urgent that we decide whether we can facilitate this extra play equipment. I think the plan is, if it goes to tender the rest of this year, that we can hope to start work first thing in the new year. If that answers. I mean, it's slightly phased because the way funding is, we've had to seek funding for different bits of the project from different areas, so the pathway is independent of the small children's play area, and the teenage provision is separate again, but hopefully we can get contractors on site and deliver most of it in one go. We're really hopeful. I mean, it's always really difficult with public procurement because you've got contractor availability as well as fund availability, so but I think part of the reason we've been able to secure a good discount on that provision, and the £35,000 cost includes the installation and the groundworks and so on, is because they're on site doing the other bits. So, yeah.
And does this also apply to the new path that's going to be?
No, so the path is sort of my pet project. I've been working on that for a couple of years. I've managed to integrate the design work for that with the rest of the park provision. So the team have looked at various options for the pathway, and we're at the only option that's really viable, and we're just at fundraising really. So we've been able to allocate a decent pot of money out of the play standard funding. That's nowhere near enough to deliver the whole project, even if it was when we started. We're probably going to fund some of it through the small town fund, some of it from the shared prosperity fund as well. That would be the topography work and so on. It's all split into, it's exceptionally complicated compared to delivering something just in the private sector. Yeah, so I don't know exactly how the delivery of the path will go, but it will get tendered for at the same time, but it may be delivered slightly differently. And also there's a segment which is not yet completely finalised in terms of design, because it goes across the top of the bowling club car park. The top of the car park does belong to Kirklees, but part of that land is being used by the bowling club to drive in and out, and then there's a discontinuous public right of way that we managed to get allocated by the Secretary of State a couple of years ago, which goes up to the start of the bowling club, then stops for a tiny bit where it's completely on Kirklees land, then starts again. So it's, it's unbelievably complicated. But we're hoping that everything will get started in the new year and then be delivered all in one day.
Yeah. I mean, I've read the background to this project, and yeah, it seems like a great project.
It's been a heck of a lot of work. I mean, there will then be add-on additional benefits. So there's a programme as part of the small town scheme, which will include better signage around the town, so that will be ancillary to the main works, and then the bin provision will be as part of a broader Kirklees-wide litter bin replacement programme, which is already underway, but there's 3,000 bins. We get 160 a month from the manufacturer, so when that exactly happens will be according to a set of prioritisations. So I can't say exactly when. Everything will be complete. And then, of course, there's a consultation going on with the CAL provision, which is independent and independent.
Thank you. There are, I think, now 5 people wishing to speak, so they are in order. The councillors Dixon, James, Brooke, Lyles and Reeves. Okay, so Councillor Dixon.
Okay. Yeah, I really like the plans that are in place. As a regular user of the parks in the area, I think it'd be quite good to having the options for the older kids by the mugger. It's quite good because you see some of the older kids down by the smaller kids park at the moment. There's not much for them, so it'd be good for them to have something else and keeping away some of the little kids just in the little kids park, and the bigger kids are in the bigger area. So I think that's good. And the general work that Kirklees have done on other parks in the area in the last few years have been really good. Nemo Park, Kirkroyd Park, Sycamore Park are all really good. And the other ones do need doing, like Sands is a bit run down and worn out, and some of the equipment needs replacing. Same with the Wardale Park as well, by the Wardale Arms, but you kind of get into them as you're getting around to them. It's good. It's quite expensive, the swing, but I guess it's going great for that kind of thing. I was a bit surprised how much it was.
It's actually cheap.
It's not too cheap.
Yeah, it's astonishing.
Yeah, no, it's mad. But yeah, I suppose you have to spend this amount of money on these things to make them resilient and good like they are. Will all the maintenance be maintained by Kirklees for the swing, or you won't be expecting the parish council to put more funding into it over the next few years?
No, not at all. So the parish council's position would be as a funding body, and then you've funded a legacy project to benefit the community. That after the end of the involvement. It would be maintained as part of the broader Parks and Green Spaces maintenance programme. The cost, it's actually nearly £10,000 cheaper than the original costing we had. That's a negotiation that the officers have been able to do with the supplier. That's not just supply of the equipment though, that's also excavation of the site, installation of eco-mulch matting so that when people fall off it they don't hurt themselves, and modification to the pathways around it. So, I mean, you know, square metre of tarmac is not a cheap item. So that's that. On the Wooldale and the timings of the other parks, we are constrained sometimes by needing to use up pots of Section 106 money, or wanting to use up pots of Section 106 money, which supplement the scheme. I think it's something like a £9 million scheme across Kirklees. Charles, you might remember better than me, but where we can leverage that funding to get better benefit by using other pots of money, that's where there'll be a priority. And I think that's part of the reason why we're getting like 5 or 6 parks done in Holme Firth, whereas really the ward scheme across Kirklees would be to have 2 projects going at the same time. So we're getting ahead of the game in Holme Valley South for whatever reason, luck of the draw. But it'd be really good to be able to deliver something that has, you know, complete appeal and legacy. And I think that appealing specifically to that demographic, and I've said it already, will give us that sense of something a bit different, something to celebrate, and something which we can publicise and build on for enhancing provision across the whole district.
And we'll also add as well, like other destination parks, like which have been done up really well. Like Burnham Park's got a really good play area in there now. Greenhead Park's always good, and my bank balance will insist that these parks do cost money, because you do go into Holme Firth and then you go to the park and then you go around the football fields and then you go in there and you spend your money, and before you know it, you're buying all sorts of things, or you're going out for your lunch and this and that. So it does benefit the area.
Right, thank you. We've got 4 people to speak. So Councillor James next, and then Councillor Brooke.
Thank you, Chair. As I'm clearly, this is a laudable project, and I can't see any reason why not to support it in principle. One thing that troubles me quite seriously is that unless I've missed it, I have not seen any reference anywhere to the issue of parking. This is being set up as a destination park, a park and ride centre. The only parking that is available, as far as I know at the moment, is at the leisure centre. Where is the extra capacity for parking all of the cars that visitors are going to bring?
Okay, so the idea is to appeal not only to, well, partly to people from coming slightly further afield who need to park or get the bus, but mainly it's to appeal to local families. So instead of driving to Sands, as quite a lot of people do now, if you've got a pushchair or whatever, or a small wheeled device like a skateboard, we will have upgraded the path from Holme Firth so that people can walk. So when my kids are too old to benefit from this really now, but when my kids were toddlers or whatever, the thought of trying to drag them through the mud, particularly in winter, across the football pitch when there wasn't a path, meant that it was quite likely we'd choose to drive around and park in the parking at Sands, where you can usually park, to be fair, and then go and play in the children's play area. Whereas if there's an active travel pathway, the hope is that we will encourage people to intermodal shift and reduce the number of cars that are used, not just there but also in the town. And when I'm talking about an extension into a park and stride or a park and ride scheme, that hopefully would be people using a bus, getting dropped off and walking into the town, so taking congestion out of the town, but also just as a destination. I think, you know, parking is always an issue, but in Holme Firth there's a lot of objection about parking in Holme Firth, but we actually got quite a lot of parking in Holme Firth compared to comparable towns, and there is a charge for it in the middle of Holme Firth. There isn't a charge at Sands at the moment. I hope it stays like that.
So the problem is that the Sands facility is already very heavily used, including by people who work in Holme Firth who park there because it's free. And I think it seems to be inevitable that there is likely, whatever the best intentions might be, that there will be an increase in people who want to bring their families to the recreation area who will require parking space. And I think it is a serious omission not to have that, and the issues of traffic flow and so on not addressed in the plans.
Yeah, so it's not part of the Parks and Green Spaces plan, but it is part of the Small Towns plan, so it is part of the next phase of the blueprint to do a survey of traffic and travel around the Holme Valley. So, I mean, in an ideal world, we'd be able to have park and ride schemes on the other side of Holme Firth Town Centre as well. We've got a slight hiccup in that at the moment, and the Prickledon Mill development is preventing that off-road travel, active travel route to sites where you could potentially have park and ride. I think, it's a legitimate concern. If we were a victim of our own success, we'd find that we didn't have sufficient parking, but at the moment there's thought to be sufficient parking for the level of use we get at the moment. And if you take out families who be able to walk there, I mean, the pathway in my mind, the ideal scenario is we are able in the future to facilitate a decent surface pathway, not just from Home Firth to Sands, but also up to Fongsbridge, and where the high school is, so that the communities up there can also walk down to Sands rather than using cars. So there is, always opportunity for people who think there's not enough parking to walk to these destinations. I think the first thing is to get a destination that people want to go to, and then we can concentrate on issues like parking, if it becomes a big issue, which I don't think it is at the moment, because I could, every time I need to park there, I have been able to. So I don't know exactly what the measure is, but obviously early in the new year when the small town programme looks at that, we'll get some data on that.
Sorry, Councillor James, I think we've there are 4 more people waiting to speak, and I think at that point we'll probably cut off this discussion. So the next is Councillor Brooke.
As it's side of the merits of this project, which obviously there are some merits, so these obviously had a survey done and an independent report in relation to obviously gender specific play items and things like on there, which I get that entirely, and it makes us more inclusive as a council. My concerns lie with the amount of money we're paying for a swing set. Inevitable, it's £35,000 of other grant money we could be issuing to other causes across the valley. Our average grants can be from £1,500 to £5,000 authorised for grants, and that's an awful lot of grant money in that one there, specifically on one swing set for that park there. And I do appreciate your explanation of why that's required, and it would provide that diversity. But I do also think we must take serious consideration to how we best spend the money we've got. We've had this discussion at the beginning of the meeting regarding raising the precepts and the potential shortfall of funds next year. So I think we should think wisely about how much we spend on one specific play item where we've got a wider valley to discuss beyond that one there.
Is that for me to address? I mean, one of the things that has been done fairly recently is the place standard survey, and the response from young people in the valley was that they didn't feel listened to, didn't feel provided for, and felt ignored. So I think this is part of responding to actually the voice of young people. In terms of there being, I mean, I know it's a lot of money in one sense, but in terms of there being other areas where you might want to spend money, if you want to provide for young people, this is what they say they want, this is what evidence says they want, and this will provide young people across the valley, not just people who live adjacent to Sands. So it is actually providing for a broader base than just the centre of Home Firth.
Thank you. So we've got waiting to speak. We've got Councillors Lyles, Greaves, and Bailey, and then I think we need to move to a decision. Right.
If anyone wants to listen to the said seating arrangements in parks and open spaces by girls, you can get it on BBC iPlayer Radio 4, because I listen to it. So the park and ride situation, right, and the blueprint plan, that's all the consideration, but I think it is a lot of money for a swing when potentially you're looking at taking other facilities away from the environment, like the swimming pool and the gym and everything else that's at risk within the Home Firth area. My children are the age of the Sands children, and don't go to the Sands, A, because I won't drive them into Home Firth, and B, because there is no bus service from where I live. So I don't think walking 6 miles down the road to the Sands is an option for me, due to the fact that probably get squashed down Dunford Road. So I just think it is quite a lot of money for a swing. I was a teenager, we had a village park, we didn't have a fancy swing. Just in that piece on inclusivity and keeping girls in an environment, they just asked for a curved bench. So that was like what that whole conversation said, that young girls just didn't like a straight bench where they had to lean round people. They just quite enjoyed a curved bench. So maybe a curved bench over a 30 grand swing. Just a bit of consideration.
I mean, I'm not a specialist in that, so that's why the landscape architect Amanda has taken the time to look where there is an evidence base for what is proven to be successful. A curved bench, by all means. I mean, the consultation programme unfortunately is passed now, so we haven't got a chance to suggest a curved bench. In terms of the environment, I mean, I think if we reduce people driving to Sands, even if it's only a 4% of that is an environmental benefit, and if we prevent families who want to have provision for the whole age range from driving to Cannon Hall, for example, because they can have a picnic and the older kids can play and the younger kids can play, then there is a carbon offset advantage to that. The bus service, very fortunately, local parish councillor Bailey, along with others, have managed to negotiate a better bus service so that the bus will now go down from Hayden to Firth soon, so you will be able to get a bus down. There's also a refranchising of buses happening through the mayoral devolution Chase Grading, so we will be able to dictate what bus services local people need instead of being reliant on commercial entities running bus services which make profit. So there is some rosiness to the future for public transport, but maybe not everybody to the same age for getting down to the play area, but in the future. I forget, you said something about the park and ride and the blueprint.
Yeah, so I was on Councillor Bailey's bus service meeting, which is what I named it. So basically, I was on a bit of Bailey's bus service. I saw Mr. Scott driving his Bailey's bus meetings, that's what we call it. So I'm on that meeting. And we have had some very interesting feedback about buses, and I have children of that high school age, and I spoke to the parents at football the other day, and they said that they would actively encourage their children to catch buses if we provided bus services for free under 16s, which was an idea we were scheming along, but obviously now we have financial implications, so that possibly might not come to fruition. But if we don't spend 35 grand on swing, we could pay for buses.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think it'd be great if there was free bus services. I'd certainly advocate that and I'd campaign for it. It's not a lot, it's not within our gift to do that, but it is within our gift to make this provision for young people in the Home Valley. So I mean, that's really what we're pushing. In terms of Cal, which was the other thing you mentioned, I mean, just the heating bills of Cal have gone from 1 million to 4 million, so we're looking at £3 million just to heat the halls. We don't, that's not the order of magnitude we can get. If the parish council had that sort of money, I'm sure we'd be bidding for it, but...
well, we're going to plant some trees to sort that problem out.
I don't think, well, we don't have a lot to get 4 million quid, and then there's, you know, other financial pressures on council. But I'm hoping that the host... Sorry?
It wasn't that much for Home First Baths.
50 grand.
No, it's not that much for Home First Baths, but Cal as a whole has to prioritise across the area. They're not going to shut Huddersfield swimming pools.
Please can we, the time is moving on, so we have a lot of agenda left to do. Please can we speak to the point, and we do need to come to resolution this, that there are 2 more people waiting to speak with Councillor Grace and then Councillor Bailey, and then we need to make some decision.
Right, yeah, well, all play equipment's costs a fortune. It needs to be bomb-proof and it needs to be installed, and it's always too much, but the simple choice is either you pay the price or you don't get anything. I think this is the right location, and I would probably say it's a bit of a 2 for the price of 1. I've played with my kids on these swing sets, so you can sit on it and talk, but you can also swing on it as well. So it's not a one-trick pony. I think the overwhelming issue for me is, bear in mind what I said earlier on in the meeting, is where we're at financially. A little over 2 years ago, we did give £5,000 towards the some park work in Holme, and I'm always keen to see that different parts of the Holme Valley Parish area are treated similar. So 5,000 for Holme, and Sands is the destination park for Holme Valley Sands. So on a like-for-like basis, that'd be double. So you'd be talking 10,000 perhaps. So within our agenda, we're offered 2 options, if you like. So one is to consider a grant for the full amount, and the other is to consider a grant for a part amount. For me, I really don't think that we ought to be committing this kind of money at this time. The 35,000, I think, in view of our budget pressures, is beyond it. I won't be averse to putting forward a proposal for 10 to 15,000. It's really a question of whether or not that'll get you to where you need to be. If 10 or 15,000 it'll do the job, fine. But will that mean that you can't go ahead with it, and then you're going to end up with additional costs, and then you're going to be back to 45,000 plus? In which case, it might be more of a choice between the whole amount or nothing. But I'll put that out there.
I'll second it.
Thank you. We're not at that point. Councillor Bailey, unless you wish to respond.
I was just interested to know if the component of the parish ward which was in Holme Valley North was half the size of the component which was in Holme Valley South. I thought it was more asymmetrical than that, but that was really not really a relevant point to do with the funding.
Councillor Bailey?
Yeah,
The last contribution.
I'm certainly in favour of the principle of this, based on the research and so on about teenage girls' play, etc. I think it's great that something's been done about this. I'm in favour of working in partnership with Kirk Police. I'm not in favour of spending this amount of money on this particular item of equipment. I think that we've been presented with one option here, one recommendation. There's a couple of options as to how it's met. In other words, part funding or full funding, but there's only one recommendation. That's not what's shown in the research. The research doesn't say it's this specific item of equipment. It says, that there is different, you need to, there are other ways to think, as said, and I think that we need time to look at that, and I acknowledge the point that perhaps there is some speed needed in this for other reasons because of the whole project, but we need some time like this. And just to put this in context, 35,000 is £10,000 more than we're spending this year on a youth worker across 3 different sites, and I just think that puts it in context for me.
Right, now what we're being asked to do is to consider release of up to 35,000 from an earmarked reserve which has been there for sorry.
I mean, just to say, you can amend that motion in just about any way you wish. It's on there, worded in that way. You've got the secondary motion, any other actions as well. So, it is for you as a council to consider how that motion might be amended in a way that, we'll get support.
I was going to ask for motions.
Can I ask a technical question though? That we've got an earmarked reserve of £50,000 for children's playgrounds.
Yes.
Yes. So we could spend £35,000 on this bit, and we've got £15,000 left to spend on other children's playground things. Or are we saying we're not spending money on children's playgrounds and we're going to via that money out onto other things? Is that what we're saying?
What we're doing now is, having had a lot of contributions from members, is asking for people to put forward a resolution as to how we spend this money.
Can I suggest
whether
That's what she's asking, Mary. That's what Trish's asking.
we might have 50,000 in reserves, but we've got no money.
We have got money. We've got £50,000 in the earmarked reserve.
If I may, in principle, we could fund the whole amount. We can fund the whole amount. There is a reserve for it. It's about the knock-on implications of that as we're about to enter budget setting. So yes, there is £50,000 in that earmarked reserves. We did put it there for children's play. So the money is there, but spent for this, it can't be spent for something else. So if I guess
are you wishing to make a
I
resolution?
just think if we could just go back to what Councillor Bailey had said about alternative options, and whether or not this might be one that we could kick back to service provision to maybe explore a bit further, but with a budget attached to it. If you think that's a way to go, I'd be happy to propose that.
I'd like, you know, just
Yes,
respond
sir,
to
yeah.
that. I'd like the opportunity. I'm not sure. I mean, Councillor Crook mentioned about, you know, that surveys been done of young people's views and so on. I haven't seen. I don't think I've seen that.
It's published. It's on the Kirklees website. It's part of the play standard consultation.
But I think, you know, I'd like to sort of take more time to look at that in depth. And if it doesn't seem to meet the needs of what we're trying to decide now, then look at how we can find that out in more detail. If we were, I mean, we've now got access, you know, sorry, I was going to say Susan Greenwood and Kirkland Youth Alliance is working alongside us and so on, and we can perhaps use that as a channel to find out a bit more about what those young people, particularly those teenage girls, actually would favour.
I'm getting, sorry, Councillor Brooke.
Can I make a proposal, please?
Yes, please.
In line with Councillor Greaves' earlier suggestion of between £10,000 and £15,000, which would seem a more affordable amount of money based on the fact that Holme received £5,000 towards its playground, can we make an offer, an agreement to offer them between £10,000 and £15,000, and that they do the crowdfunding that they suggested for the remaining amounts, if they can possibly get that one there? So I propose that we actually offer between £10,000 and £15,000 towards this project.
Thank you.
And I'll second
Yes.
Just as a point to add, it's not possible for Kirklees to do the crowdfunding. That works as a community group, so it has to be. It can't even be the parish council. I don't think. So it has to be a community group. So you need to institute a community group and then have them fundraise.
So we've got a.
So I'd just like to come up with a slightly alternative one. I don't know whether to call it a working group or whether to refer it to service provision, though. I don't know when they're meeting next. But I'd like to propose a provision budget of £15,000, up to £15,000. And I think we ought to set up just a working group. I hope Councillor Byrne would lead it. Just to explore this a little bit further, but to have that budget attached.
Thank you. I think there is already the working group in existence, isn't there?
Yeah, we formed one in June.
We formed one in
Excellent.
June. So the working group already exists. So we have a proposal there. We've had a seconder as well.
And I think maybe, I don't know the dates, but it might be wise to delegate it to social provision, to service provision rather, so that there's an opportunity to make a quick decision rather than coming back to full council.
We could meet next week.
We are meeting.
Right. So we have a proposal here to set up the working party exists. So to send this letter back to the working party with an upper budget of £15,000. So we've had the proposal, we've had a seconder. So are there any alternative proposals?
An alternative proposal will be to go for the full
Mm.
amounts.
Yeah.
And also just to make a point about provision for girls. If you look at space in playgrounds and play areas, then boys tend to dominate that space. So to have equipment, obviously not just for girls, but I think just to make that point that we're looking to provide more space for girls.
Some of the girls are up for the lads.
Thank you. Just one meeting, please. So we have two different proposals. So we need to vote.
And can I just clarify them to make sure that we are on the same page with this? So there is one motion which I would suggest ought to be the first one that's put, which is at up to 35,000 for equipment provision for girls, as set out in the report, is put to a motion. And the second one is that there is a provisional, to create a provisional budget of up to £15,000, and you are looking to delegate to the Service Provision Committee the power to make decisions when it meets on the 6th of November as to whether or not that money is then given to this scheme as outlined.
Yeah. Happy with that. Yeah. So the first, to put to the vote. The first one is that we release 35,000 from the EMR paid for this project as for which we've had information. So all those in favour of the full 35,000.
Do you make that 6?
And then moving to the second proposal, which is quite lengthy, but I think you all understand it. It's the working party and an upper limit of 15,000. All those in favour?
Do you make that 10?
So the second proposal of a sum up to 15,000 is carried. Thank you. Thanks everybody for their contributions to this debate, and thanks particularly to Mo Group for having come and figure this
It's about Holme Valley North, Melbourne is happy, Holme and Rockwell's is happy. So Holme Valley Parish Council is so Holme Valley Parish Council is 1.5 they're on
Right, given the time and the length of that previous debate, proposing with your agreement to defer the consideration of what we do with the rest of the money, but we can't really talk about that until we've got. Okay. So again, considering the time, decided that we will defer the next two items. They're not time critical. So that's item 67 on councillor training, and item 68, the protocol for dealing with residents' queries. Okay, I'll accept that. So we move on now to Councillor Greaves' report on the Funfirth Banking Hub.
Thanks. So, as you all know, Bank has closed down. Myself and Steve Froggatt, who's the postmaster at Funfirth, tried to get Link interested in setting up a banking hub. At the same time, the tech had offered a marketing suite for bankers. That's up and running. Link assessed Funfirth and determined, under their current procedures, that there wasn't justification for a banking hub. We felt there was, so we put an appeal in, and that appeal was based upon Funfirth not just being the small village of 3,000, which it is listed as, but actually being, if you like, the concept of the greater Funfirth, which it would be the main population centres of Thomsbridge and Wooldale and Netherthong being drawn into that, which should have got it over the threshold. The assessment came back for the appeal has still been declined. The rules around where the banking hub is appropriate are subject to review, and it may be that in the new year that changes, so this opportunity may come again, but we were looking to strike whilst Barclays branch was still physically there with everything in it, which would have been the easiest. So it had stopped being a Barclays 7 days a week, and it had been a Barclays 1 day a week, and a HSBC another day, but it wasn't to be. But there is a possibility that might come back, and if it does arise, I will share that with the council.
Thank you. Could I just say, Councillor Greaves, that Metro Bank's been in the press today because they've had to refund it, and they're actually looking, their guys, which is probably going to destroy them, is actually to have local banking hubs in villages.
Well, I know like city centres.
So maybe it's worth considering one of the directors goes to the ballot and ask.
Well, yeah.
Metro is
They've got their own
seeking funding. They've got major financial problems, and they could be going on.
Right, can we stick to the point, please? Thank you, Councillor Graves. So we move on quickly. Item 70, the Communication and the Freedom of Information Act, and that was merely for information.
Noted.
Noted. Thank you. Item 71 is the laying of poppy wreaths, and we've had the list of those people who laid wreaths last year, so we just need to whip through this and decide who well, this is putting things. So first of all, we need to consider the expenditure of £134 and 8 poppy wreaths. Can we agree to that, please? All those in favour? So we agree to that. And now the representation at the various ceremonies.
Yes, so I've got some reporting back to do regarding this. Spoke to Councillor Firth last Thursday, sent him all our best wishes and so forth at the present time. Councillor Firth has been laying wreaths for both Kirklees and Holme Valley Parish Council for many years, decades, at New Mill. So I asked him the question really about his health, in how he's feeling, and really he's not in a position to say at the moment. If he is well enough, he would love to do that wreath laying, but we won't know till nearer the time. So I am going to suggest that you will want to come up with someone who will shadow that. Also, just points of information for you. Two of the councillors that are absent tonight, Councillor Green has said that he would be willing to do the Holme wreath laying, but is also happy if any of the other Holme councillors want to do that. And Councillor Ransby has said that he would be prepared to do the New Mill wreath laying if there was no one else coming forward. And I've already explained the position with regards to Councillor Firth.
I'd quite like to do the Holme one. I wasn't able to last year, which was Councillor Green had to do.
I wonder if perhaps if we start at the top and work it down, is that okay? So the first one is Holme Firth, which I did last year and I'm able to do again, so that's fine. The next one is Brockos. Yes, are you? Yeah. Hepworth.
Yeah.
Tom. Home Bridge, which was the councillor's Bellamy last year. Home Bridge, Upper. Sarah Whitelaw. Councillor James, are you?
I don't think I'll be available.
You weren't available, so we'll.
Mary, I'll do it if Sarah can't do it.
Okay, thank you. And Homley.
I'd like to do it. I couldn't do it last year, which was why Councillor Green has to step in.
Okay. Nethersong. You can be doing that.
As it was on to fight before it.
You want to fight?
I'd like to watch the fight, but
I'll get some buns.
So we come to New Mill. So obviously Councillor Firth would do it if he's well enough.
would it be possible to support? I usually go with him anyway.
You usually go with him anyway, right? Yeah. And then Upper Song.
Yeah.
Upper Song, thank you.
So can I just confirm that?
Yes, please.
So Councillor Blacker for Holy Trinity Hamford, Councillor Fenwick for Brockholes, Councillor Dixon for Hepworth, I'll contact Councillor Whitelaw regarding Homebridge, but otherwise Councillor Lyles.
Only if you don't want to do it. She's busy on morning.
Honley, Councillor Colling. Netherthorne, Councillor Rostron. Newmill, Councillor Thurfield, if he's well enough, Councillor Brooke otherwise, and Councillor Wilson for Upperthorne.
Excellent. That was painless. Excellent.
The reads are there if people want to take them.
It's October.
I know, but they are there. we might not see you again. They are there.
We are on ploughing relentlessly on. We're on item 72 now, which is adjustments to council meeting schedule and clerk to report.
Yes, just to say, 2 meetings what, and also a reminder that the last full council meeting, the October ones were swapped as well, because October half term, confusingly, is in October and November this year for three schools.
My boys are off on a birthday.
Thank you.
Could I just
That's
make
it
a
to
point
see.
about the swapping of the two? That means with an extra week on the plan, doesn't it? And we have fallen foul before, haven't we? Where
this is my fault. It's
we
because,
run out of time.
Unfortunately, it's because I can't have childcare the week
No,
before.
I'm not
Just
criticising.
bring them to that, kick it down. Bring them along.
I'm just wondering if we could
Sometimes we might think better
ask her, please, if they give us a bit longer.
I can certainly send them a note. I think what we found is that
It worked at Kit Kat.
If nobody's got anything